roots of Orthodox spirituality.
Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou Lekea.
Lord have mercy, 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 Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, 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 Lord have mercy.
Hello, dear listeners. We are continuing to read from the book Spiritual Struggle, the third volume in the series Spiritual Counsels by Saint Paisios.
Crossing the waters as on dry land, in that way escaping from the evils of Egypt's land.
Scorn for blasphemous thoughts. Yeronda, Abba Isaac says that we overcome the passions through humility and not through scorning them. Is scorn of a passion and scorn of blasphemous thoughts the same thing? No, scorn of a passion contains within it pride, self-confidence, and worst of all, self-justification. In other words, you justify yourself and do not acknowledge your passion. It is as if you are saying, "This passion is not mine, it isn't related to me, and consequently you do not struggle to get rid of it." But blasphemous thoughts we must scorn and reject, because, as I said, they are not ours, they are the devil's. When someone pretends in front of others to have a particular passion, gluttony for example, does he mock the devil? He is then pretending with the good pretense. He is not mocking the devil. You mock the devil when he brings blasphemous thoughts to you and you continue to chant. How can one dispel a blasphemous thought that comes to him during the church service? By chanting, "I shall open my mouth and the Spirit will inspire it," the opening line of the Irmos of the first ode in the canon of the Akathist hymn. Are you not familiar with the hymn? Do not stir the thought up, scorn it. When someone discusses such thoughts during the hour of prayer, it is like the soldier who is taking apart a hand grenade while making his report to the officer. What if it persists? If it persists, you should be aware that somewhere within you it has set up a stronghold. The perfect solution is this: scorn the devil because he is the one who is tutoring you in cunningness. It is better at that time not even to say the Jesus prayer, because this way we show that we are seriously concerned over this matter, and the devil, seeing he has upset us, takes aim at this weak point and begins constantly bombarding us with blasphemous thoughts. It is better if we chant during such a time. You see, even little children, when they wish to mock some other child, sing their familiar la la la. We too must do the same thing to the devil, but we will chant hymns, not sing songs. Psalmody is prayer addressed to God, but is also a scornful rejection of the devil. Thus the devil is stricken from both sides, and will soon give up. When I am in such a state, Yeronda, I cannot bring myself to chant hymns, and I even have difficulty in going for Holy Communion. This is very dangerous. The little devil is setting up a blockade against you. You must go and chant and receive Holy Communion, because these thoughts are not yours. Be obedient in this one thing. Just chant an Axion Estin. It is truly meet to bless you, O Theotokos. So the little devil will get what's coming to him and go away. Haven't I told you the story about a certain monk? He had come to the holy mountain at the young age of 12. He was an orphan who had lost the tender love of his natural mother and had given all his love to the Panagia. He felt her to be his mother. If you could only see with what tender devotion he would kiss the icons. Later, the devil exploited his love and brought blasphemous thoughts. The poor child would not even go to reverence the holy icons. His elder learned of this, took him by the hand, and set him before the icons of the Panagia and of Jesus Christ, and directed him to kiss them directly on the face and on the hands, and immediately the devil went away. In a way, it is impudent to kiss the Panagia or Christ on the face, but the elder directed the young novice to do this in order to dispel the troubling thoughts. When we are at fault for blasphemous thoughts. Yaroda, when I am attacked by a blasphemous thought without my consent, am I at fault? If you are troubled by it and do not accept the thought, it is nothing. Yaroda, when is someone at fault for a blasphemous thought? If one is not troubled at having such a thought and sits about discussing it, then one is at fault. And the more he accepts the blasphemous thoughts, the more he will be troubled by the devil. For when a blasphemous thought goes through one's mind and he turns it over in his mind to examine it, he is actually exposed to some demonic influence. And how will such thoughts go away, Yaroda? If one is troubled and upset by them when they come to him, and he does not examine them, they will go away on their own because they will not be nurtured. A tree that is not watered will die in time. But from the moment someone is pleased with these thoughts, even for a short while, he provides nourishment for them. The old self is thus irrigated, and the inappropriate thoughts will then wither only with great difficulty. Yaroda, sometimes I accept these blasphemous thoughts. I give my consent, and then I realize what has happened, and then I cannot dispel them. Do you know what is happening to you? For a moment you are distracted and your mind is elsewhere. You're daydreaming with an open mouth. Then the little devil comes and throws candy into your mouth, and you begin to suck on it. You taste its sweetness and are then unwilling to spit it out. But you must throw it out immediately, just as soon as you sense its sweet taste. That is, as soon as you realize the temptation. Yaroda, what happens when a blasphemous thought comes which I accept for a brief moment and then dispel? Then it is as the devil has given you candy, and after sucking on it for a while, you suddenly spit it out from your mouth. But you should spit it from the beginning. Otherwise the devil will outwit you in the beginning with candy, and then he will fill you with poison and mock you.
Most holy Theotokos, save us. Pure one, fill my heart with a merriment, a happiness. Bestow on me your spotless joy. For you have given birth to him who is a cause of joy. Most holy Theotokos, save us. Deliver all of us from the dangers, Theotokos most pure. For you bore the timeless deliverer, and you bore the peace which has surpassed all thought.
Chapter 3. On Trusting Our Thoughts. Trusting our thoughts is the beginning of error. Yaroda, when I am angry, I become like a raging torrent, unable to control myself. Why can't you control yourself? Because I trust in my thought. Well then, you have your own belief, your own creed. Your egoism is at fault. Do not justify your thought. When a foolish thought comes to you, get rid of it yourself. Do not accept it. And how will I understand that a thought of mine is foolish? Well, if you do not understand, tell it to the abbess, and then directly throw it away and be obedient to whatever spiritual direction she gives you. When a spiritual person trusts his thoughts, it is the beginning of error. His mind is darkened by pride and can be readily led into error. It is better to go insane, for then, at least, one has extenuating circumstances. Is there any possibility of getting help from others, Yeroda? In order for one to be helped while in that state, he must first help himself. He must understand that to believe in his thoughts, which, let's say, tell him that he is the best, that he is a saint, and so forth, is an outright error. This kind of thinking cannot be removed even with a machine gun, as long as one holds on to it tenaciously. One must be humbled if it is to go away. Sometimes I am asked to pray in such circumstances. What prayer can I make? As long as someone still has in his soul the wick of the devil, it will flare up again. This is like someone continuing to hold blasting charges in his hands and asking others to help him from being blown up. Yeroda, I have become very crabby and harsh. Who says that of you? Is it perhaps your thoughts? I am watching over you from the holy mountain. You have not become crabby and harsh, but if you come to believe in the thought which has come over you, then you may lose your mind. Do not believe your thoughts, neither when they tell you that you are terrible, nor when they tell you that you are a saint. Trusting our thoughts creates psychological problems. Yeroda, when someone has the notion that everybody seems to be thinking or talking about him, how can it be dispelled? This comes from the devil who is seeking to make him sick. He must become indifferent to such a thought, not trust his thought. For example, if someone who is suspicious sees an acquaintance speaking quietly to another person, he may think, "He is talking about me. I never expected that from him." Of course, the two are not talking about him at all. If this tendency is not checked, it can lead to dire consequences. He thinks that he is being watched, that he is being pursued. Even if there is some concrete evidence that others are paying attention to him, he must realize that even this is contrived by the enemy to convince him. How the devil can combine such things. I know a young man who is very intelligent, yet he trusts his thought which tells him that he is not altogether balanced in his mind. By accepting these thoughts that are brought about by the devil, he has become the victim of many complexes. He has even attempted suicide. He has brought great sorrow and distress to his parents. While God has given him many abilities and talents, the enemy is rendering them useless, causing much torment to him and to others. I cannot understand why people accept such devilish thoughts. They are making their own life miserable and grumbling bitterly against God, who so loves and benefits us. Nothing you say to such a person seems to help him. If he does not stop trusting in the thoughts the enemy brings to his mind, he will only continue to wear himself out. Is the sensitive person weak within? Is he sick? No, philotimo and sensitivity are natural gifts, but unfortunately, the devil succeeds in exploiting them. The devil can make a sensitive person magnify things so as to render him unable to endure some difficulty or allow him to endure for a little while and then make him weary, disheartened, and in the end, useless. If a person manages to properly utilize his inherited sensitivity, it will become heavenly. But if he allows the devil to exploit it, then it will go to waste. For if a person does not put to good use his gifts and talents, the devil will come to exploit them for his own purposes. Thus, the gifts of God are thrown away. Instead of showing gratitude to God for these gifts, he takes things in the wrong way. A sensitive person who trusts his thoughts may even end up in a psychiatric ward, whereas an indifferent person who couldn't care less is not on the right path, but at least he does not end up in a psychiatric ward. This is why the evil one seeks out the sensitive people. Others will put into their mind, or rather the devil implants into their mind the thought that they have some inherited burden and tries to persuade them that there is indeed something wrong with them. He frightens them in order to perplex them and render them useless without reason or cause. Even if something is inherited, it can be overcome with the grace of God. Do you remember Saint Cyprian, who from being a sorcerer became a hierarch and a martyr of the Church? His feast day is celebrated on October 2nd. Another example is Moses the Ethiopian. His feast day is celebrated on August 28th. A notorious robber who became a greatly refined ascetic among the fathers of the Church. He attained great spiritual heights. When he visited Saint Macarius of Egypt, he asked him, "What must I do? The world is troubling me, and I cannot find any peace." He was then told, "Moses, Moses, you are too sensitive. Go into Petraea, Arabia, the inner desert of the northwest region of Arabia, for you cannot expel the world." Moses excelled in spiritual sensitivity. Even Saint Arsenios the Great, who was a well-educated and cultured person from an aristocratic family, while Moses was a notorious robber and murderer. You see what the grace of God can do? But of course, he had great humility. Peculiarities begin as thoughts. Yeroda, how is it that some people are easily disgusted? Tell me, what disgusts you? Everything disgusts me. In that case, everything bad will come to you. Worms in your fruit or beans, a hair in your bread, and so forth. That is exactly what happens, Yeroda. Glory be to God. Do you see how much God is helping you to overcome this problem? Yeroda, doesn't this problem start from the thought? Let's say we find a hair in our bread. We can just take it out. This is a blessing. Give it to me, and I'll take it for a blessing. Oh, I remember once at Mount Sinai, I was going somewhere with a monk, and I gave him 2 peaches. I noticed that he did not eat them. He wanted to go and wash them before eating them, and he held them in his hand so they will not pick up more germs by putting them into his pocket. His brother, who had 8 children, used to tell me, "He uses up more soap to wash his hands than my wife uses to wash our 8 children." You should see what happened to him. There at Mount Sinai, a Bedouin was assigned to help each monk with the chores and to provide food and so forth. The Bedouin assigned to the fussy monk was the most unclean of all of them. He was really unkempt. Both he and his clothes smelled very badly. He would need to be soaked in water for a whole week to get clean. His hands were so dirty that they needed to be scraped to get them clean. Whenever he picked up the tray to carry the food to the monk, his fingers would go into the food. "Go away," the monk would shout whenever the Bedouin approached him. In the end, of course, the poor monk did not last even 2 weeks at the Mount Sinai monastery. I remember also at the Cenobium, we had a monk who, as a layman, had been a police captain. They made him a reader because he was educated. He had been in the monastery for years, yet was still disgusted by many things. He would not even touch a doorknob. He would try to open a door with his foot, or try to turn the knob with his elbow, and then clean his sleeve with alcohol. He would even open the door of the church with his foot. In his old age, God permitted that his feet develop gangrene, especially the one he used to open the door. I was serving as a nursing aide when he first came to the monastery's hospital with his foot all bandaged up. The nursing orderly told me to untie it while he went to get some bandages. When I untied it, I gasped. It was covered with little worms. "Go down to the sea to wash it and get rid of the worms, and come to have me change the bandages." I was at a loss seeing the condition of his foot, the degree of his punishment. The nursing orderly asked me, "Do you know the cause of his affliction?" "Yes, it's because he opens the door with his foot," I told him. "And Yeroda, did he continue to open the door with his foot?" "Yes, with his foot. and he had grown old as a monk. Didn't he understand in the end? I don't know. After that, I went to the monastery of Stomion in Konica. I don't know how he died, but there in the cenobium on Mount Athos, some of the younger monks would eat the food left on the plates of the older monks as a blessing. They would gather the leftovers because they had been blessed. Others would kiss the doorknob touched by the elders, while the monk who was disgusted by everything would barely touch his mustache to the holy icons when he bowed to reverence them. One can only imagine what his poor mustache had to endure with the rubbing alcohol. Yaroda, when something like this happens with sacred things, is it not irreverence? Of course, this is how things start, and then we move on to further developments. This same monk reached the point of not kissing the icons because he feared that the monks who reverenced them before him had some illness. In other words, if one is to avoid being disgusted, he must not be fussy or pay any attention to such things. People do not see what trash is mixed into the food they put in their mouth. Even if one has some phobia about getting sick, Christ will help if one makes the sign of the cross with faith. Many people who have various illnesses come by my Kalivi. Some simple folk who come will cross themselves when they pick up the tin cup I have there to drink some water. Others who are afraid do not touch it. Someone who held an important position in a company recently came to see me. He is so afraid of germs that he has bleached his hands white from frequent washings with disinfectant alcohol. He will even rub the steering wheel of his automobile with alcohol. I felt sorry for him. Do you know what it is like to hold such an important position and to be like that? I gave him some lukumi, and he did not take it because I had touched it. But even if it had still been in the box, he would not have taken it because he would be thinking that someone else must have placed it in the box with his hands in the first place. I took the lukumi and rubbed it on his shoe and ate it. I did a number of things like that in order to help him free himself, even a little, from his feeling of disgust. Today, a young woman came here who was a hypochondriac. She would not receive a blessing when she entered because she was afraid of catching germs. And when she was leaving, after all I had said to help her, she still would not receive a blessing. I won't kiss your hand, Yaroda, because I'm afraid of catching germs, she told me. What can you say? Such people make themselves miserable. Those who suffer from imaginary illnesses. A greater sickness than the fear of germs is for someone to imagine that he has some sort of sickness. Such a debilitating thought creates anxiety, worry, loss of appetite, loss of sleep, the need to take medicines, and in the end, an actual illness, when in fact the person was well to begin with. To be sick and to seek treatment, I can understand, but to be healthy and to imagine himself to be sick and to actually become sick over it does not make sense. For example, while one is actually strong in body and spirit, he begins to imagine that he is sick and unable to do anything because he has believed in his thought that tells him that he is not well, causing him to waste away both physically and spiritually. It is not that he is lying. If a person believes that he actually has something wrong with him, he becomes panic-stricken, broken, and then has no strength to do anything. Thus, he is rendered useless for no reason. Some people come to my Kalivi who are totally broken. My mind tells me that I have AIDS, they say, and they believe it. I ask them, did this or that happen? And they tell me, no. Then don't worry. Go and be examined by a doctor so you can get rid of that negative thought. To this advice, some will say, what happens if I am examined and they find that I do have AIDS? Some will not take my advice and will continue to torment themselves. In contrast, Those who do listen and are examined see that they are not actually sick, and their whole life changes and is restored. The others wither away in bed and do not even want to eat. You may happen to have AIDS, but for God there is no difficult problem. If you can try to live more spiritually, if you repent and go to confession, if you receive Holy Communion, and so forth, you will find some help. How does one start imagining that he is sick? One begins gradually to cultivate this imagination. Often there may be some physical cause, but it is rarely anything serious. Then the imagination adds to it and magnifies it. When I was in the monastery of Stomion, I knew of a family man who imagined he had tuberculosis. He did not even allow his wife to come near him. "Don't come near me, you will catch it too," he would say to her. The poor woman would hang a basket of food on a long pole and would give it to him from a distance. She was devastated. His poor children could only look upon him from afar. Of course, he really had nothing wrong with him, but because he was not out in the sun, but remained constantly in bed and covered up, he had become yellow and simply believed that he was sick with tuberculosis. I got up and went to his house. When he saw me, he said, "Monk, do not come near me. I have tuberculosis, and you may catch it too and transfer it to the monastery." "Who told you that you have tuberculosis?" I asked him. His wife brought some sweet walnut to serve me. So I told him, "Now open your mouth and be obedient." He opened his mouth, not knowing what I was going to do. I put the walnut into his mouth, turned it around, and then took it out and ate it. "Stop, stop, you will get sick," he shouted. "You do not have any contagious diseases," I told him. "If you did, do you think that I would be crazy enough to do this? Get up now and let's go outside." I directed his wife and said, "Put everything away, the medicines, the blankets." I got him up and we went outside. After the 3 years that he had remained closed up in the house, he was looking at the world outside with a strange gaze. Later on, he returned to his work and got back to normal. When we cultivate such negative thoughts, they can be devastating indeed. Dear listeners, our time is up. Thank you for listening. We will continue once again where we left off in our next show. Until then, be well.
Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have
Readings of Orthodox Spirituality.
Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou Lekea.